What's up, bitches? Welcome to the Joel and Randy's Texas Tea. I'm Chris. I'll be your host. You can call me Sir Christopher if you're nasty. Yeah.
Girl. Yes, ma'am.
Pulling out a jam.
Yes.
Oh, am I right?
I love it.
He's tall, he's dark, he's handsome. He's Joel.
Hey, what's going on? How are
Joel. Joel, whatever your last name
chocolate
is.
going on here, girl.
No, you did not.
Yes, I did. I can call myself
No,
chocolate.
hypocrite. No.
I can call myself
In
chocolate.
Spanish, it's hipocrito. Bitch. We had a whole episode of behind this motherfucker not wanting to be called chocolate. And what did you just pull out?
He can call himself
I
chocolate.
call myself chocolate if I
And then
want
you
to.
don't expect anybody else to do it. See,
Hell
that's
no.
hypocrite.
Hell no.
That's the prerogative of...
Hell no, that's
Girl, she is
Chocolate.
not Bobby Brown.
Mm-mm.
You don't have the any prerogatives, bitch.
On my left,
I want his prerogatives.
you've already heard from him. It's the angelic.
Oh.
His voice will turn you into a puddle.
Oh, really?
It
Oh,
is
girl.
Randy.
Thank you. How you doing?
Hey,
That was. Listen, I can't even
The
say I
best
show hate
intro
it.
ever.
I can't even say I show hate it like I usually do. I show love it. That was a fabulous introduction. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, how are we gonna get this party started?
Let's get this
We
party.
have started the party.
Mm-hmm.
So what's up? What's new, y'all?
Let's
What are
go
you
to
open up
news.
to?
Let's
Oh,
go
we
to
got some
news.
news.
Got
Girl,
some
tell us
news.
some tea, honey.
What, should I go first?
Yes,
Ooh,
please.
let's do this. Mr. Rogers.
Ooh.
Bisexual bitches.
What?
I said, well, first of all,
Wait, he's dead.
he's dead, yes. And
He's dead, but
He can't
apparently his legacy continues.
Now, let me tell y'all something about Mr. Rogers. And I have told this before to other people. Y'all don't touch Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers was perfect. Mr. Rogers was the thing. Mr. Rogers used to be in the military. Mr. Rogers.
Wait,
was-
what branch?
Oh, I think he was in the Air Force. If y'all are out there
Wait, did he
listening,
fly planes?
if y'all are out there listening, if I'm wrong, please correct me on our
Fact check.
Facebook page,
Fact
Joel and Randy's
check.
Texas Tea, on Instagram
Our
or
fact
on
checker is
Twitter,
out.
Joel and Randy's Texas Tea. So if I'm wrong, y'all just let me know.
Tweet.
But
tweet.
Anyway.
you know what? I'm gonna be honest. I was so excited when I heard that dude.
Well, wait. How did you?
His friends said that he was attracted to men and women.
But here's a
And
question.
I
This
wanted
is
to,
How does his wife
I
feel about
understand.
that? Because he was married for like 50 years.
yeah, he was
How
married.
his wife
Like,
feel?
she knew.
Oh,
She knew. She already
get you
knew.
some, girl.
Wait,
Mhm.
how did this come to light?
Oh, this came to light because they were doing a little article on Mr. Rogers, and so they went and talked to all his friends, and they did stress that they did talk. They talked.
They stressed the bisexual
Yeah,
part.
they talked like everybody knew he was bisexual.
Oh,
So,
wait,
Mrs.
there was just a
Rogers-
movie about him, right?
Mhm.
But no, I don't
No,
think
there was a
so.
documentary.
No,
We
it's a
need to
movie.
see a movie.
It's
No, it's a
Netflix.
it's a Netflix
It's every
documentary.
it's on Redbox right now.
Yeah, it's a Netflix documentary.
It's on
Mr.
Redbox now.
Mhm.
Well, it can be in Red Box and on Netflix. But
Mhm.
here's the thing.
Mhm.
Mrs. Rogers may have been getting freaky deaky
Mhm.
behind this bisexualness
Mhm.
because she knew, so
Mhm.
they may have had some extra part.
Mhm.
Oh, girl, this is juicy.
It's juicy, girl. It's juicy, but it's juicy in a way that it's still heartwarming
Well, it is
to know that.
Well, wait,
to know that
it's like
he was my hero when I was a
Well, wait, would he
child.
go to like parties?
I don't think Mr. Rogers was the party type.
Girl,
Did he like?
see, she's
Did
already,
Mr. Rogers
but
like get freaky?
he's already shocking me by this, so
Mhm.
I bet he was a party type.
Hmm.
Somebody said something about Lou Ferrigno.
Me.
Mhm.
And what was that thing about Lou Ferrigno?
Well, I mean, yeah, there was an interview with him and Lou Ferrigno, and Mr. Rogers is like eyeballing his pecs like the whole interview, and Lou Ferrigno is like,
Mhm.
Now, see, I have a light
I mean,
fantasy.
I'd be doing that too.
I have a light fantasy that Lou Ferrigno is.
wait, you have a fantasy about Lou Ferrigno?
I'm having one now about Mr. Rogers getting
Mhm.
fucked by Lou Ferrigno, girl.
Or the other way around,
Mm.
because I think Mr. Rogers would have been a fabulous top.
Girl, that would be
He
even
has
more
so-
than
he
tea.
must have so
If
much
he's
to get out, right?
If he's fucking the Hulk, girl.
Mhm. Oh, that would be the
Mr.
tea.
Rogers fucks the Hulk, girl. That video
Mhm.
would go.
Wow.
That would be an
Do you
amazing
think they really
video.
did it?
Mm-hmm.
I wish. I hope. In my mind's eye.
I love that idea.
Mhm.
I do too.
We should write some like
That's hot.
fantasy.
Yo,
Fan
fan fiction.
fan fiction.
Ooh, that would be
Joel and
hot.
Andy's fan fiction.
I'm
Yeah,
not saying
exactly.
shame on you, Mr. Rogers.
Well,
Oh, no, there's no shame in that.
I'm going to say,
I am
good for you, Mr. Rogers. But
I am mad though that he picked the bisexual team. Why would you want to pick a team that?
Well, I mean, maybe that's what they.
Y'all know how I feel about bisexuals.
Wait,
Bisexual men.
I know.
Bisexual
I
men.
know.
Yes, you do.
No, I don't.
Bisexual
I don't have a
men-
problem with bisexual women.
I do because I mean,
I don't have a
bisexual
problem.
men.
Yeah,
I do.
bisexual men I have a problem with.
Because they can't commit
Mhm.
usually to anybody. And
And-
then when they do, they're still not. Because you know what? They marry a woman, they're getting the dick sucked at a bathhouse or whatever.
Mhm.
After that, it's just a very dishonest lifestyle.
Mhm.
And I don't mean no harm, but I like to keep it real. I
So
am.
if you're
Ooh,
married and a guy sucks your dick, does that mean you're bisexual? To me, bisexual means you're attracted to
yeah.
both sexes.
It is.
Yeah.
That's what it means.
But to me, that sounds more down low than
It's
anything else.
See, it is sort of a download
It
thing.
sounds more
because,
down
listen,
low.
I
don't think it's bisexual.
The
I think
only
it's more
two men in my life that I've had steady relationships with, which aren't really steady. You know, they're just nooners. But we had scheduled times. We had scheduled time. They call them nooners. Back in the 70s, they
Was
called
it
them
noon?
nooners.
Was the schedule?
Bitch, it wasn't always noon, but that's just the expression. Really? Will you let me
I gotta point out the
continue?
obvious. I do.
All right,
I
bitch.
mean, I go for the low hanging fruit.
Mhm.
I think his foot was low and hanging.
I love that about you. Anyway, no, my thing was I was sleeping with this one guy, the Nazi. We'll call him the Nazi. We've talked about the Nazi before on the show. The Nazi used to say we would have so much fun sleeping together, and then we'd be rolling around and talking, and we'd just laying in bed and talking, and I'd bring something up, and he would say, whatever I brought up, and then he would say, wait, this is his voice. I'm not gay. And I'm like, bitch, what? Don't involve me with gay people. Okay, you know what? You just had sex with a man.
So you
And now
already
you're judging. You're judging everybody who's gay.
So in a way
And
he was
called
already
himself
involved.
bisexual. And that's what annoys me. It's like, no. It's like gay men in a bisexual man's eyes, in my experience, are less than.
Well,
We're
so,
just,
okay, my
we're
question
just
was,
vessels. We're just fun. They don't take us
was
seriously.
this more an interchange of passionate bodies colliding, or was this more like somebody's getting serviced?
Let me tell you something.
I want to hear details.
This man
Tell the details.
actually made up a song.
What?
A song. Not for me. He was singing to my dick.
What?
Okay? Yes. So guess what? That makes you gay. As far as I'm concerned. The bisexuals out the window licking and singing to a dick makes you bisexual. Makes you gay.
But
Yes, Queen. Oh, songs
I have a
have been
new goal.
sung. Songs have been sung.
Wow.
But let's move on to some other news.
We're moving on.
Let's move on to some
Let's
other
move
news.
on.
I want to throw this one more thing. Now I know that everybody said
I was trying to
when
move
we when we decided that we were just going to do one. I actually had one before Mr. Rogers
You had
popped
one
up.
what?
Mr. Rogers popped up on my phone this morning, and I
Oh,
went,
no,
"Ooh, yes, man!"
Joel has more to say about
Yes,
his
ma'am.
stories.
But
Come
here's
on,
the thing.
girl. Tell us your stories.
Here's the thing. The Oscars. Now that happened, and the Oscars were not that great. They were. It was a sad
I didn't
parade.
even watch them.
You know, the only funny part was when Tina Fey.
Oh, no,
Maya-
let's not rehash the whole
Yeah,
thing. Let's get to the
but that was the only funny
We don't
part.
care about celebrities anyway.
But the
continue.
thing is that when a certain Mr. Billy Porter came walking down the red carpet in that fabulous gown, and again, that we are still talking about. I don't know why we still
Well,
talking
we're
about
not
it.
still talking about it, but
Everybody on the right has been talking about it since that time, and it's like,
Wait, still?
Yes, still. These bitches are still talking about it.
What are they saying?
They're obsessing, apparently.
What they're obsessing about is the fact that what they're saying is that it's a throw thing at masculinity and blah, 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 blah. And here's something that y'all need to know on the right.
Ridiculous.
And we're going to have this discussion again because this is ridiculous.
Girl, ain't nobody on the right listening to us, but tell your friends that are on the right.
We're gay. We've been doing this for thousands of years. I don't know why this is new to you. Why is this new? We go to gay bars and see men in dresses all the fucking time, and we don't even worry a thing about it. Y'all see one man walking down a red carpet in a. That gal was fabulous, by the way.
It was fabulous.
It was. I want that gal myself.
It was classy.
It was classy, and it was. And y'all think that this is an attack on masculinity from the gay community.
Y'all need to get.
We've been attacking masculinity for thousands of years, honey. This is nothing new.
Masculinity is my favorite point of attack.
Exactly. It wasn't even an attack, really. It was more him deciding he was going to wear a gown. He wore the gown. It looked good, and that was it. And if y'all are still talking about it 2 weeks from now, bitches, y'all crazy.
Well, speaking about Hollywood, there's another attack going on from the gay community on Chris Pratt. And the church, Chris Pratt.
Oh, right.
And the church that he goes to. And
why does it matter what church he goes to? Isn't that his
I don't know.
Isn't that his private?
I don't get it. I don't get it. That's your business.
That's your business.
That's your church.
No,
Where you worship is your business. No worries. So, what Chris Pratt has said in reaction is that I do not hate gay people. And the church that I go to does not hate gay people. It's a good church, and they stood behind him, beside him, what have you, when he got divorced from Anna Faris. They were there, and they do not believe in divorce.
Love me some Anna Faris.
I love me some Anna Faris. She is.
But I don't like
They
that
don't
sitcom
believe
she's
in
in.
divorce. They don't believe in divorce in his church, and most churches don't. But get you some business.
Yeah, exactly.
Church, mind your own goddamn business. Oh, Lord, forgive me, I just said G-O-D.
You've been saying that a lot.
G-O-T.
You've been saying that a lot, bitch.
I've been backsliding.
You've been backsliding, girl.
We in church now? Are we in church now?
No, we are not in that church.
Anyway.
Wow.
Anyway, so Chris Pratt says they all hate gay people. They stood behind me and beside me. And their philosophy is based on his church's philosophy, which is Zoe Church. Z-O-E.
Wait, what the fuck is that?
Z-O-E Church.
Is this
It's an independent religion.
Ooh,
It's
okay,
not,
I like it.
Well,
I mean, is
they
it
don't-
Christian or non-christian?
You know what?
I mean, I'm not Christian,
I don't know.
so
I'm a Christian, but I
I'm
don't know.
speaking from a
I don't know what their actual church
I think
is.
it's Christian.
I grew up Southern Baptist. Ooh, girl, don't go there.
Those are the ones who
Because
use
they
I went to Southern
really,
Baptist Church, and then I went like.
they really go hard on gay people at Southern Baptist Church.
Yeah.
That's why I do my own thing.
You know,
Anyway, so let me finish.
Go ahead.
I'm just going to finish this.
Go
story.
ahead, finish the story.
Anyway, Hillside or Hillsong Church is where Justin Bieber goes with Haley Baldwin, and they believe that, you know, homosexuality should not be something that is, how do you say,
a norm.
Supported.
It should not be normalized.
It should not be
It should not.
normalized.
And so they're going after Chris Pratt for that. But you know what? Here's the thing. You can't control what your church believes. And if you want to get out, get out. But I honestly don't think that they're actively, you know, every day you go to church, they're saying, okay, here's what's going to happen.
And I think that there's a difference
You
between
gotta hate
approving-
gay people. We're all gonna hate. I think
There's a difference between being hateful and not being approving of something.
right. And there's nothing wrong. Listen, my mother said this to me when I was a child, and it's good advice. It's a good truism, honey. Not everybody's gonna like you.
Yes.
You're gonna have to get over it. And so not
And
everybody's
people
gonna
are
like
going to
you.
believe in things that we don't like.
Yeah,
But frankly, it's none of our business.
It's
What
none
is
of
our
our
business
business.
if whatever comes out of their mouth or their actions that affect
Yeah,
us, if
exactly.
it affects us negatively.
and how he
Nothing has
commands.
come out of Chris Pratt's mouth that has affect gays
No,
negatively.
and he's
Exactly.
never said anything.
So
So
why-
y'all just leave
Who
Chris Pratt
cares what
alone.
fucking church he goes to?
Well,
listen.
I'm gonna throw this in here. Here's where all of this came from. This actually came from an interview that Ellen Page did on the not the Tonight Show, Late Night with Stephen Colbert, and I understood where she was coming from. Also, this was the same
Oh, what
conversation.
did she say? I'm curious.
This was also the same conversation where Jussie Smollett, before we found out what was going on.
Jussie Smollett, please go away.
Yes, but the thing is, I don't want to get into that.
No.
But
But
here's
we
the
like
thing.
Ellen Page.
But we love Ellen Page.
I mean, I don't know.
I love Ellen Page.
I don't know that
And
bitch,
I-
but I'm sure I would love
I
it. if
was
knew her.
smart.
And
Well,
she made a point to point out on the show that Chris shouldn't be going to this church because this church is very anti-gay.
It doesn't-
And blah, blah, blah. And I get that. And I completely...
I don't get that at all.
Hold on.
People
Let me-
should be free to go whatever the fuck church
Exactly.
they want. It's none
but-
of our fucking business.
Exactly. Let me throw this in here.
Okay, throw it in.
But the thing
Sorry,
is
I-
that
That's okay.
I understood where she is coming from because, like I said, after what supposedly happened to Jussie Smollett had just happened, and
What does that
there
have to do
was
with Chris Pratt?
and there was some anger there that I get and I understand that.
This is
But the
why I
thing
feel like
is-
gays can be too militant about
But-
thought police.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is that
Thank you. I
we
agree
need.
with you.
I love Chris Pratt. I think
I
Chris Pratt
think
is
Chris
an
Pratt
amazing.
is a.
I don't
He's
love
just
him.
this giant
He seems
goofball.
like a wonderful person.
Wonderful
I don't know
person.
that motherfucker from Adam, but I do know one thing. He has a right to worship wherever he wants
Yeah,
to,
exactly.
without judgment. And this is bullshit. You know,
Thank you.
just like Chris said, we don't have the right to police anybody on anything they do as homosexuals. And there is a...
And I have to say this.
If he's doing something in his church's name in the public, that's different. But
Yeah.
he's
But he's
privately going to
He's
church,
going to church, minding his own
minding his
motherfucking
own
business.
fucking business.
And you know what? I promise you.
I feel like that. Audience. I want to say this. I feel like that. I'm the one who sick. So I feel like I'm
You're the
being
one
beaten
who
up.
said?
I feel like I'm being beaten up here.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
But the thing is,
no, we're not
but the thing
beating
is,
you up. We're beating
I
up
wanna-
the people who support
Yeah.
the idea that Chris Pratt doesn't
But I
have the
wanna-
right to worship wherever he
How do you
wants
see
to.
I want to. Here's
We're
how.
sorry, sweetheart.
No,
I'm
it's
sorry.
fine. No, it's fine. It's basically I feel like you guys feel, but here's my point from that. I'm not a religious person. I was not raised. I am a African American man, black man, who is unusual in the black community. My parents were not religious people. We didn't go to church on Sunday. We sat in front of. My dad sat in front of the TV for football. My mom hung out with her
Wait,
friends.
you never had a God experience?
No. So when my dad and mother divorced and he married another woman who was seriously Baptist, that was the first time I had any church experience at all. And the thing is that I learned something from that experience.
I'm sorry.
I learned something from that experience. I learned that church is a community thing. It should be something that you go to get whatever you need, spiritual.
It is a community
Exactly.
thing, for sure.
And it should be a personal and private
And
thing.
it's personal and private.
And this whole thing where churches have gotten out of control and turning into these huge stadiums where can you
Well,
imagine?
you got a huge stadium right down the street.
Yeah, exactly.
On the way here.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
they're anti-gay, by the way.
And they're super anti. And this fool locked people out during the flood. But we're not even going to go into that. That's another topic. But the thing is that church is supposed to be about community, and it's supposed to be about helping you get through your stressful, hard times. And I don't think that Chris Pratt is homophobic in any way, shape, or form.
No.
He has never proven to be homophobic in any way, shape, or form.
It seems he's a victim of circumstance.
Yeah, he just needed some comfort from from a church that gave him comfort, and he got it. And if we do not approve of the church, that's fine.
That's not our business.
That's
Exactly.
fine to say that the church is a bad thing. But to say that Chris Pratt is a
It's
bad
bad
person.
going, yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I don't. I
Like,
don't want to go down
we
that
don't want
road.
people in our private business. Like,
Yeah,
what you do
exactly.
in your private bedroom is your business.
Exactly.
Where you go to church,
Is your
what
business.
you believe
Mhm.
is your own fucking private
And Chris
business.
Pratt-
When you start trying to force those beliefs on me, then we got a problem.
And Chris Pratt has been very open about the fact and how much he loves gays and lesbians.
Chris Pratt, I think you need to call us right now. I think you need to settle
Yeah,
this.
exactly.
Yes, you need to settle the score.
Mhm.
Bring your ass over here and pick up a mic, girl, and talk.
And pick me up too, because
Maybe-
you can take me home.
Maybe take your shirt off.
Take your
He's
shirt
kind of
off.
hot, isn't he?
He could have taken his
You
shirt
know
off
what?
when he was a little. He calls himself overweight, but listen, on The Office, when he took his shirt off, I like what I saw.
Wait, The Office?
No,
Is
that's
that
it.
on The Office?
No.
yeah, he
Parks
was
and
on
Rec.
Parks and Rec. Sorry, on Parks and Rec.
Mm.
When he took his shirt off, I liked what I saw. So
I like what I saw. I was perfectly
I
happy.
don't watch that show. I think it's terrible.
I
I like The Office myself.
well,
I do like The
Mhm.
Office.
but I loved him when he had his dad bod. I loved him when he was a little chubby and just the cutest little. I just wanted to just nurture him. He was just the cutest little goofball I'd
He
ever
wanted him to
seen.
nurture you with his nipples, apparently.
And his and his huge dick.
Speaking of dad bods, is there any other news we need to talk about?
Oh yes.
Oh,
I gotta throw this in here. I gotta throw
she's
this
got a
in here.
nugget.
Because
got a
I read
nugget.
news all the time. Because of the show, I read news all the time. So here's the thing. Out Magazine.
Yes.
Out Magazine did a profile of the 9 Hollywood celebrity males
The hottest?
who are the most
Wait.
well hung.
Now this.
Oh,
wait.
well hung.
The
What-
well hung.
Really?
The well hung.
Oh, well, who came in?
And I would like to tell you
I feel
that
like
a
this is
certain
rude.
sexiest man alive ended up on that list.
Oh, I know who it is.
Oh, and a Hemsworth is
It's,
also on the list. Idris
Bradley
Elba.
Cooper. Bradley Cooper's on that list.
That just means he has a big
Yes.
penis.
Don't say penis in my presence. I swear, I'm gonna whoop both your asses. I don't like it when people say penis.
Look at all these rules.
I already
Don't
wrote.
say JC.
I
Don't say penis.
Oh, don't say JC. That's just that. That,
Well,
Who's JC?
Taking Lord's name in vain. Don't do it.
I'm kidding.
Anyway,
I'm kidding.
there's only and bitch. By the way, there's only in my life. There's only one JC.
Oh, Bradley Cooper is on that list.
Bradley Cooper, of course, is on that
He's
list.
on that list. Oh, and the one that you and I argued about,
Which one?
who was dating Ariana Grande, that I said
Oh,
wasn't,
yes.
but he is, and
Who?
she said that he was.
Wait, he is what? Well, huh?
Pete Davidson. Pete Davidson.
has a large.
Wait, who the fuck is that?
Oh, from Saturday Night Live. Girl.
Yeah, girl. He was
He's
dating
the skinny.
Ariana
He's
Grande.
the skinny boy on Saturday Night Live who looks like a child.
He's like 6'2".
He's 6'2" and just skinny. But he is young, and you understand
hung.
that. Young and hung. But
Yes.
Randy and I argued about that because I didn't think he was on.
Ain't no need to argue with me. Like I told Joel, I have seen over 1,000 cocks in my life.
Wow.
Well over 1,000. Girl, I was.
So with all that
I was
data,
25.
can you
I
perform
was
some
25 then.
data
So,
manipulation to tell us some interesting things about the cocks that you've seen? Like the outliers, perhaps?
What?
What was the... Do you know...
Scientific data.
What was the...
Oh, I know what you're saying. I'm just saying.
What was the
Scientific
oddest
data.
thing you've
The
seen?
reason I said what? Oh, the oddest?
Yes.
Cock that I've seen? Oh, girl. He had this thing that there's an actual name for it now, but I can't remember it. But his dick clung to his leg. It bent over.
Wait, it was webbed?
It bent and clung to his.
Wait, so it was a banana dong and just went that way?
Are you not listening to me?
I heard what you said.
It bent and went, literally clung to his left leg. It was like a suitcase handle.
Oh.
And he was like, I want to fuck you. I'm like, how the hell are you going to do that?
You gonna do it from the left?
What am I supposed to do? Get in there and swing around and position myself? Just kind of move like
Now I've seen
just
the
kinda
ones.
take my ass and just kind of.
I think so,
Yeah.
yeah. So what
Actually,
happened?
I laughed at him. I said, "Motherfucker, get out of my booth!"
Actually, I like.
Get out of your booth!
I actually
I
like
love
the
you,
ones. I actually like the ones that bend up. that have that little curve upward?
Yeah, it's called a banana dog.
Yeah, I love
No, the
that.
curve upward is good because
I love
you know,
that.
it hits your prostate just right.
And it makes sucking dick so much easier to me.
Really?
Yeah, it really does. Because it's kind of pinned up. It's up, so you don't really have to go. I'm not the most proficient.
I'm not
the most proficient cocksucker on the planet.
I'm sending this to your mom
I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good at what I do. So what I see
is this a plug?
Joe is plugging himself.
So when I see a cock that's kind of bent, and when it gets hard and it bends,
Joe, your users and me, we need some tips.
Okay, first
I don't need no tips.
I do.
Like a good dick. I don't know who you talking.
Well, I need some tips on the.
We are grown. We are
listeners.
We're grown.
I'm grown too, bitch.
Apparently, you've not grown enough to suck a cock the right way.
Hey, I ain't got no complaints, but
the only advice that I would give is just make sure you don't use teeth. That's the only advice.
That's it.
That's it. As long as you're not using
keep your teeth out of the equation.
You keep your teeth out of the equation. You save your teeth for the nibbling on the balls part.
Yes, you can.
But no, I'm saying you can't plug yourself, and that's the only fucking advice you have.
Because cocksucking is not that hard. It's really not that hard.
Just don't use teeth?
Just don't use teeth.
You
have to relax. Listen, we are not having cocksucking class over here. What's wrong with all of us?
Speaking of cocksucking, back to our show.
We're going back. We do realize that y'all
we got a topic, bitches. We got a topic.
Realize that y'all are out there.
Well, you know what? We have 4 minutes until we take our break. We take a little break, and then we're going to get into the second segment. We'll be on the topic.
No, she just acted like she was exasperated by this experience when you were a part of it. Don't go there, bitch.
And in that segment, I am going to use the word penis.
Lord,
and Randy will understand why.
What do you use? Cock?
I like
cock and dick.
Cock doesn't get the floppy.
Cock or dick. Bitch, I know what a cock
is.
Penis gets
a floppy. Penis gets a floppy.
No, we'll talk about that on the next segment.
No, we won't, because like I said, you will understand why I use the word penis.
I said on the next segment.
We're not going to spend another 30 minutes talking about
We're not going to talk.
dick.
We have other things to talk about.
I want to talk about 30 minutes to talk about the word penis. The
terminology. Listen, don't make me break a glass on the wall and stab you to death.
Do it.
I don't like that word. It's so
we're going to talk about what we grew up with. We're going to talk about the movies and the gay representation.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we're going to talk about.
Cool sorts of cool shit. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned, because we have some cool shit to talk about. But we're going to take a little bit of a break, and I'm going to go ahead and call it break time.
What was the first gay character y'all ever saw on TV? We're going to talk about that. Yeah. Yeah, baby.
Oh, yeah, baby. But let's take a break.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back. We need some more Texas tea in us, because this is about to get real up in here.
Shit.
So let's take a break.
Penis.
Shut up, bitch.
We'll be back in a moment.
And we're back. Instantaneous for you listeners.
Yes, it was instantaneous for you listeners, but we did take a little bit of a walk away. We need a little bit more Texas tea.
We needed a blessing.
Well, just last night or whatever when it was, I was thinking about what was the first, there's people nowadays, the TV, there's gay characters all over the place.
Yeah, exactly.
Gay is so accepted, and in the day when we grew up, it was a different thing.
Yeah, in the
80s, the portrayal of gays was completely different than it is now. So I asked my fellow hosts, what did they grow up with? What were the gay characters that they connected with? What sort of TV did they grow up with? And so here we are.
Here we are.
Yeah.
Here we are indeed.
So
big eyes. And
I can tell you a gay character that listen, when I was a little girl in 1980, my parents went to a very small town in Alabama to visit my father's uncle who owned a pig farm, which, by the way, pig farms really stink. If you can avoid one, please do.
Well, any farm stinks.
And
it's got animals
a
in
pig
it.
farm really
Have you been
stinks.
around cows, honey?
Bitch, Don't challenge me on this. Why is she worrying me? What is going on?
Anyway, back to the.
I love this shady alley cat. Anyway,
What? That's being shady.
Anyway, back to the goddamn story that I was telling.
Right?
Oh, see, she's about to get cut.
Can you tell the story, bitch?
Stick to the topic. I'm trying to stick to the topic, and you stop interrupting me. So anyway, so they went to the big farm and left me at the Howard Johnson's, and there I was, little old girl in 1980, sitting there watching free HBO at the Howard Johnson's, and guess what came on? Victor Victoria.
Oh my god!
Yes.
I love that
And
fucking movie.
The first scene of Victor Victoria is a man getting out of bed with another man.
I forgot about that.
And it struck a chord in me. I'm like, wow. I felt kind of dirty, and I felt kind of. It just felt so good. It's like,
how was it portrayed in the movie?
In the movie, it turns out that the guy that he was sleeping with was using him for his money. And his name's Toddy. And Toddy gets up, and, well, the guy gets up first. He starts putting his clothes on.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Cab there, Richard." And he said, "You get your money's worth." And then Toddy says, "I'd say you get your money's worth."
Ooh.
Which is an allusion to the fact that he fucked Toddy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, shit.
And,
yes.
Oh, I love that movie. And then the whole movie goes on, and it legitimizes homosexuality.
Mm-hmm. In the 1930s.
I mean, this
in the
is...
1930s. But
the movie was made when?
the movie was made in 1970. I believe it was made in 77, 78. But it didn't get to...
And I know it because Mary Poppins was in it.
It didn't get put out. It didn't get into circulation until 1980.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
because they had a hard time selling the movie because of the content.
Really?
Alex Karras, who was a major football player, was in the movie, and he was Toddy's boyfriend. In the end,
so this is a big deal.
In the end, they leave together and go on with their lives and have a happily ever after.
Wow.
Nobody died because they were gay. In most gay movies, people are killed
Yes.
and shamed.
Right.
And the boys...
They're ridiculed.
And another movie that bothered me, now on the other side, I saw The Boys in the Band when I was 23 for the first time, and that was a movie that was made in 1976, I want to say. And
it was actually based on a play.
And it's now on Broadway as we speak.
It's a Broadway play.
But it shames gay men for being gay. And it sort of says that every problem that they have in their life is rooted in the fact that they're homosexual. It's a very sad... I cried watching that movie because it shames you. And nobody who's homosexual should be shamed. Girl, I'm joyous about being homosexual. But my
Now...
but
were you like that growing up? Oh, really?
Oh, I've always been joyous about it.
Really?
I don't remember a day that I didn't...
Bless your heart. Wow.
Bless your heart.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you. I appreciate that. But I've never had a moment in my life when I hated myself. But
I have. I grew up hating
there were
myself.
moments when I felt the hate from other people that made me feel bad and I wanted to change it. I prayed about change when I was 14 because everybody around me hated gay people. Now, you have to remember, I'm Southern Baptist. I grew up Southern Baptist. So it's very difficult when you grow up in a religion like that teaches hate of gay people. And I'm sorry, Southern Baptist folks, but you know I'm right. You know.
But you're always internally okay with yourself. Even though the media is portraying gays in a certain way, your church is portraying gays a certain way, you were always secure with who you were.
Yeah, in my mind, I felt like I was right, and I am right. I'm right to be who I am. But as a child, you're conflicted, and my conflict was me being who I am versus who they want me to be, And so that's why I tried to pray the gay away, and a lot of people do that. Mm-hmm. You can't do it, because guess what? God is on our side.
Mm-hmm.
That's what people don't understand. God is on our side. As long as we live a life of love and kindness, God is on our side. So, stop hating yourself if you're gay. If you're within the sound of my voice, girl, stop praying the gay away. It's not going to happen. Love yourself.
It's not going to happen,
Love
that's
yourself.
for sure.
I wanna throw this in because now it's my turn, and
It is your turn, Joel.
everything I'm about to say is going to be so off the wall it's ridiculous. So the first time, and this was 1970, maybe 3. I think it was
1973?
maybe 5 or 6 years old.
Fuck?
Maybe 5 or 6 years old. Maybe a little bit older, but I don't want to do the numbers. The thing is that the first time my mother at the time, and I love my mother, and I'm hoping that she is not listening to this.
Oh, we love our mothers.
But-
we hope they're not listening.
But here's the thing.
We showed it.
My mother was going through a time in her life where she was not the most stable person on the planet. And when I talked to my mother, I sometimes realized that there was a point in her life where if she had to do it over again, she would not have children. She had a goal, she had ideas she wanted to do and everything else. So being a housewife was boring to her.
I can
It was
see
boring.
that.
Yeah, it was boring to her. She wanted to travel. She wanted to be adventurous. She wanted to do all this stuff, and she had to live up to the expectations of her family. And when she met my dad, she married the first person who came along, and they had a terrible relationship.
Wow.
Well, that's a shame.
And
So
that
you
caused
watched TV a
her
lot?
to drink a lot and party a lot and do
But
all
I
this
support
other stuff.
that.
So the first time
I support
I
moderation and
saw the first
responsibility.
time, and I think I was 6 or 7 years old. The first time that I saw a penis was hold on. Will you please let me tell the story so you can just shut up and let me tell the story.
I love that word,
The
penis.
first time that I saw a penis was through a keyhole
Wait.
because my mother had come home.
Stay on topic, honey.
She came home with a dude that she had partied with the night before, and I
like
wanted
your
to make
vibe.
sure that she was okay because I was like the caregiver at the time.
Sounds like it's okay to me.
I peeked through the keyhole, and there was this man. And the first thing I saw was his penis, and it was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. It changed my life. I was 6 years old.
They can be.
Wait, what does this have to do with the 80s television?
I will get to that. I will get to
She's
that.
taking the long road.
Yes,
to her
I will get
parent.
there.
She's
And
got a parent.
it
She's
was
taking the long road.
it was the first
So
thing.
you saw the penis of the kill, and it was like, woo!
Yeah, exactly. It was like a woo.
Everything was unveiled to you.
And I stood up from
This
that.
story is being organic.
Did you know
It's an organic
did you
story.
like penises before then?
No, I didn't know anything about it. Until
That
I
was
saw
the
one.
moment.
That was the
You were like,
moment.
fuck, I
That
like
was
that.
the moment. That was the moment.
Joel, this needs to be a movie.
Yes,
Yeah,
that
it
was the
needs to be a
moment.
story that she finishes. Will you shut the fuck up?
So
I
that
am
was
the host, bitch.
that was the first moment that I'd seen one, and I said, I think I like that.
Ooh.
You
And
think?
no, I knew I liked that, and
That's right.
I said, okay, well,
I
she's
know I like
fine. So I'm gonna go back and watch it.
It's fine.
She's fine. She's being taken care of. So I went back into the room and I turned on the TV. Now this is old school 1970s. So you can literally get up and physically walk
Right.
over to the TV and turn on the TV.
Oh, yeah.
And all this other stuff.
yeah, I was
and the
the
first
control
thing
my
that I
house.
saw,
Nowadays, people have no idea.
the first thing I saw was Bewitched. And
Oh.
my favorite character in Bewitched was Uncle Arthur.
Paul Lynn.
Paul
He was
Lynn.
the T.
And I became obsessed with Paul Lynn.
Because you saw the penis right before.
Yes, I became obsessed with Paul Lynn.
You didn't
It
want to
was-
see Paul Lynn's penis.
No, I didn't want to see Paul Lynn's
They're
penis.
just connected.
Okay.
It just connected
In your pre-PS
because he was super effeminate.
super.
He was super
I never
effeminate.
remember.
Yeah, he was super effeminate.
Uncle Arthur, look him up on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. He was super effeminate, and it was
Wow,
obvious.
bitch.
It was obvious, even from my young eyes, that he liked men.
Oh hell yeah!
And I knew that when I was 6.
Was this an idea on the show?
No, it wasn't. I don't think it was an idea on the show. I think it was just Paul Lynn being Paul Lynn. And
okay,
he used to be on Hollywood Squares.
yes,
And he would be the center block, and he would always have these funny little witticisms that he would say all the
I remember
time.
him being gay.
Oh, he's gay. He's super gay. He's super gay.
I mean,
And I started to watch.
I watched a documentary about
Paul
him.
Lynn was what? It was also. I'm sorry. I had this all together, and I realize now I should have done a little bit better of a job. But
you're doing fabulous.
But
girl.
it was the first time that I'd seen a man who was so at home with himself, and
he was effeminate.
he was very effeminate, but very at home with himself. And it wasn't until years later, the first time that I'd seen two gay men together was a little movie called Making Love.
Oh.
Wait.
With Kate Jackson.
I saw that late in life. But
Yeah.
that's a good
Kate Jackson
one.
and
Kate Jackson.
Kate Jackson and
Mark. No, wasn't it Mark Hamill? It was
Mark Hamill.
And Mark Hamill.
And-
Hamill, Luke
yes, Mark
Skywalker?
Hamill. No,
No,
honey.
no, not Mark. I'm
Mark
sorry.
Hamilton.
Mark Hamill.
Is
Was
it
Mark?
Is it Mark Hamilton?
I forget.
I can't remember.
He ended
his
up on
first name.
LA Law. That's
Yes,
all I did.
yes,
That's not Mark
Yes.
Hamill.
Yes.
Well, hey,
No.
was there a gay character in this?
A gay
No, it was a
character
gay
that was
movie.
surrounded by
The wife.
Was this
Well,
the
they-
movie?
the man. Michael Onking was his love interest.
Mhm.
Michael Onking was married to Kate Jackson.
They had
Mark
a happy
Hamill-
relationship.
Mark Hamill.
Mhm.
Hamilton.
I think it's Hamilton.
Mhm.
But I'm not sure. Anyway,
Mhm.
you know what?
Fact checker.
It's Hamilton.
Our fact checker is
Anyway,
on strike right now.
anyway, Mark Hamilton was this really cool guy in a leather jacket. And
I thought I was telling the story.
bitch, I'm trying to explain the movie to him, but you're right. Anyway,
I thought
anyway,
I
I was just trying to explain who the stars were, and
Mhm.
girl, I didn't mean to step on your ugly ass toes.
Oh, I'm sorry. My toes are
You've been
fantastic.
red.
Thank you.
Mhm.
But the thing is that
I don't mind.
Uncle Arthur was my first start, and then I realized that there were a lot of Uncle Arthurs when I was growing up. In cartoons, there was Snagglepuss.
Oh.
Yes. The super pink a pink cougar. No, not pink. That was the Pink Panther. But he was a Hanna-Barbera cartoon where this
Snagglepuss.
super effeminate tiger
I
would,
didn't
and he
care
was
for
very.
Hanna-Barbera
What?
cartoons
Here's how they
other than
explained it.
Flintstones.
Here's how they explained it. This was a character that was very into the theater. So he would use lines that were very theater related.
Oh.
And he would go, and I will exit stage right. But he would say it in such an effeminate voice that I went, oh, I like this character. This character is actually pretty cool.
So when did you guys first?
You're hosting the show. Go ahead, girl.
No, okay, I want you to wrap up what you're saying. Like, what was?
Is she gonna wrap up what she's saying?
Is she done?
I don't know.
Well, so when was the first? When did you guys first see like a gay kiss on TV?
Well, the gay kiss for me on a movie was again.
Making love.
No, actually, they didn't have a gay kiss in Picture Victoria.
It was all like insinuated, right?
Yeah.
Like when was the actual like gay kiss?
Oh, there was a certain ABC did something so amazing during the 80s. It was ridiculous. They had a show. No, not a show. A movie. Because ABC used to do movies of the week.
Maybe
Oh,
it's
yeah.
the week. Oh,
And they had a movie of the week
Too.
where the son of this very rich family who lived in Connecticut
Wait,
or
no,
something.
this has
Yeah.
Oh my God.
this has
Yes.
What's his face in it?
Yes.
Twilight
And
of the Golds? Is that what you're talking
one out
about?
of the guys, I don't think that's
Golds. Twilight of the Golds.
Golds.
That's Tony Goldwyn.
Mm-hmm.
That's a Tony Goldwyn movie that you're
Mhm.
talking about.
Mm-hmm. But it was this little movie that came on, and it was about a kid who was in college, very confused about his sexuality. Very confused. And his confusion ended when he got into a van with a gentleman, because he was in the park. And he got into a van with the gentleman. And the men looked at each other with such sexual tension. Mm-hmm. And then it panned out to the outside of the van. Now, the van wasn't rocking, but it did pan out to the outside of the van, so you knew what they were doing in there. And I was old enough to know what was going on. I've been in Publix Market in Tampa, Florida. I was in that van. But you know what? But it was the first time that I realized, oh, wait. 2 dudes having sex in a van. I like that idea. Yeah. I love that idea. Well, I was always very... In my brain, I was always, that's the person that I was. So everything to me was very intellectual. It was not about feelings. It was about seeing from an intellectual point of view.
Mm-hmm. What about intellectual?
Yeah. From an intellectual point of view.
I really like you.
It was never about feelings that much. It was more about what was going on in my head.
Feelings.
Mm-hmm.
This bitch with her shade.
Talk about
all right, you know what my first moment was? My first kiss that I ever saw on television was from Dynasty.
Yes. Wait, that was like Dynasty?
84. Dynasty, bitch.
Oh, with
Steven kissed his boyfriend, and they were in front of the fireplace, and then Blake took a poker and killed his ass. Killed his boyfriend.
What?
Yes, Blake
I thought the first gay kiss was on Melrose Place.
No. That was way before.
Dynasty broke down all kinds of barriers.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, you know what, they pissed me off, though. And this is another thing that happened in the 70s. Gay characters reverted back to heterosexuality. Mm-hmm. The gay character, the gay character on Dynasty, who was a pioneer, reverted back to heterosexuality. And so did Billy Crystal
in
the show Soap.
What?
Yes, Queen. And he was all out and proud and part of the gay movement. At the time, there was a big movement back then.
I mean, that was one of the first
that pisses me off about
characters, right?
The directors. And it's not Billy Crystal's fault.
We can go even further back.
Fault. It's the directors and the producers and the writers of the show Soap that did that to him.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not blaming Billy Crystal.
No.
But I will blame them because there was a big gay movement at the time, you know, gay rights and stuff. Girl, we had a civil rights movement big time going on in the 70s. And guess what? They made him straight.
Archie Bunch.
Wait, so what was
the family did an episode where they had an effeminate character.
Lesbians, right?
No, it was an effeminate gay character. It was
a drag queen.
No, it wasn't a drag queen. Oh
no, the effeminate gay character.
Yes.
What was the first gay character you guys remember in the show?
Oh, definitely All in the Family. And there was a character on the show. He was gay. He was a blonde, and he wore a cravat, darling. And Archie's friend at the bar was a really cool, straight.
They were in the army together, and they were in the army together.
And they were in the army together, and all this. And turns out he's gay.
Oh wow!
And guess who his boyfriend is? The guy with the cravat and the blonde hair. And Archie with the butt.
Yeah, exactly. But you can go even what do they call it when they make a show and then they just like the Jeffersons. Maude. Maude was the first time that I'd seen a gay bar.
Love Maude.
Really?
A gay bar.
There was a gay bar.
There was a gay bar episode. It was a spin-off.
Maude was a groundbreaker. I watch it to this day. I record Maude off of FETV. Girl, Maude is everything.
And Maude Star, a lot of people might know what Maude is. The Maude Star's
Maude,
the girl from the Golden Girls.
Yeah. B. Arthur. She was, listen, B. Arthur never told anybody, but I think she had breast cancer because she lost all that weight. She was a big woman. Maude was big, and she had some big old...
Now, B. Arthur was a tall woman.
Yeah, she was
a very
5'9".
5'9". I thought she was taller than that. She always comes off as tall.
But she is tall.
Yeah,
for a woman, 5'9" is tall.
Anyway, so Soap is the first.
And she's wearing heels.
Mm-hmm.
What's the first gay character on TV that we remember?
For me, the first gay character I remember is the blonde from All in the Family, who, the episode
And
where
how did
Archie
that affect
Butler
you?
loved.
Like, what did that do for you?
Well, I have to say, it didn't do much because I was just a little tiny thing.
And my coming out,
it was 1970. I think it was 74.
Mm-hmm.
That's the year
I think my actual character that cemented that I was gay, 100% cemented I was gay, was Revenge of the Nerds. Lamar, and he was the black character, and this is the first time I'd seen a black gay character, by the way, who was gay. And he was...
And a nerd.
And a nerd.
Wow, yeah.
And
all sorts of
that made me go, wait, okay.
That's me.
That's me, right there. I'm Lamar. And I saw this at the theater.
Wait, was he gay?
Yes, he was gay in the movie.
In the movie,
he was gay. He was, and
But it was
they
kind
all,
of
yeah,
ludicrous.
yeah, but they were the outcasts,
What?
and this is
I just made a word, y'all.
Yeah, he made up a word. Anyway, go ahead, Joe.
they were the outcasts on a college campus. They couldn't get into a fraternity, so they started their own fraternity.
Revenge of the Nerds, yeah.
And when he came in, and they all were interviewing people who were going to be in the house, and when he came in, and he had on this pink outfit with the little leg warmers and everything else, and he was just fabulous. And I thought, yeah, that's me. That is me.
Oh, but
And I was sitting in
leg warmers.
And I think I would never wear pink leg.
But
I
that's
probably do that.
You identified.
But I finally had a character that I identified with.
Because of the nature of...
Now,
I think that's so important.
Of course, in the movies, he didn't have a love interest. He didn't. But he was the most dynamic character in the house.
Well, and for a long time, like, for all the gay movies that had a gay person, like, their boyfriend had always died. Like, it was always about the gay person.
They'd always kill him off.
But he
didn't
have any of that. He came into that house because no fraternity would accept him because he was gay. And here was a fraternity that did accept him because they were outcasts too. And he turned out to be the most dynamic character in the house.
Wow.
And he was the one who got them to like have parties and to socialize with other fraternities. And he was the most dynamic person in the house. And I thought, that's who I want to be.
There you go.
So going from there forward, like, what was the big gay? So Revenge of the Nerds, like, what were the big gay characters after that? Like, I don't remember my first gay character.
Oh, the first time.
After that, let's see.
That would be Hollywood from Mannequin.
Oh, Hollywood, but he never said he was gay.
He was gay.
He never said
but
he
it was
was
so
gay.
apparent. It was
Mannequin. But he never said he was gay.
Wait, there's a gay character in Mannequin?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Hollywood. But Hollywood never said he was gay. He never. There was not his character.
It was
actually
implied.
His character. There was an implication.
Well, I mean, that's like Beverly Hills Cop, where the guy who plays Balky on Perfect Strangers.
Oh, yeah.
Acts gay.
Yeah, he acts
He
gay.
never says that.
Oh,
he's gay,
and by the way,
it's kind of derogatory.
You know what? By the way, Balky. I can't remember his name. Anyway, that character, that guy, was implicated in the Me Too.
Oh, how so?
Yeah, well, apparently he's handsy. He likes to put his hands on women, doesn't he?
Oh, I got it. I see. Hands when we're touching. So, yeah, well, well, we got 10 minutes left, right?
Yep.
What else gonna do with 10 minutes?
I don't know. What is us?
Well, let's see what us can do. What else can we do?
I wanted to spend some time. 10 minutes is a lot. But
Girl, sometime
I wanted to spend some time talking to the people who are listening, because sometimes, they got issues going on, and sometimes we can talk comedy, but we're not really addressing anything that we're dealing with, what they're dealing with. So I want to spend some time to talk to you guys, the people who are listening. And
I like that.
Issues.
What else gonna say, girl?
We all got issues that we're dealing with, and sometimes the way I deal with issues is I turn my phone off. Sometimes the
yes,
phone,
I know that.
The phone,
yes, I know that.
The phone can be a very prevalent thing in our life, and sometimes you know what? We just gotta turn that shit off. We are not the phone.
May I interject something
Yes,
to that
of
point?
course.
I always turn my motherfucking phone off. People can't reach me.
And
They reach me when I want them to reach me.
Yes.
You're not gonna dictate.
Sometimes we let the
my
phone
life.
run our life.
I don't. And I
Good.
agree with you.
You're old school.
Focus less on your phone and more on the people around you.
Yep.
Who love you.
I gotta say this, when I think about all the great memories in my life, none of them could have been improved by a smartphone. Not a single one. So sometimes just turn that phone off, live your life. It's not going to kill you to have your phone off. I know some of us are very addicted to our phones. Turn your phone off and just listen to things.
Yeah. I can't imagine being addicted to my phone. In my household, in my family, we have dinner every other Sunday. Girl, nobody brings up a phone. There's no phone in the equation. None.
That's old school.
Nobody ever looks at a phone. I don't even know if my sisters and brothers-in-law bring their phones. Nobody looks. I turn my phone off most of the time. More often than people are comfortable with. But you know what? Get over it.
You know what I love about these two right here is they don't have their phone out all the time, texting people, doing all that shit. When we are hanging out and we're talking to each other.
Yeah.
And I'm not to downgrade people who are on their phones. That's awesome. But, take some time, turn that thing off. You're on your phone. You probably will find that you're on your phone all the time. Turn that thing off. Have some me time.
Right. And you know what?
Have some you time.
Have some you time, exactly.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to reach me if I don't want you to. And
Right, exactly.
I do not suffer from the phone. The phone does not, bitch, I will turn this shit off in a heartbeat.
There you go. So what are some issues that you guys have been dealing with, and maybe some tips for our listeners to help them on their journey through life?
Well, I have something.
What, Joel?
And I think it's something that Randy and I have talked about in the past. The thing is that I always envied Randy and David. They came out when they were super young. And
little cheerings.
And at the time when I was growing up, especially in high school, and high school was the time where I didn't know what I was. I honestly did not know what I was. I didn't know if I was gay, if I was straight, if I was bisexual,
Really?
I didn't know.
I did not have that.
And I spent a lot of my time in high school avoiding situations that would put me there. So I used my humor to get me through high school and everything else. And that's what I did. But, I had all my crushes were guys. Every crush I ever had. I had one crush on a cheerleader for about 30 minutes.
Sure.
Because I felt like that's what I was supposed to do. But there was that other part of my brain that was like, no, I don't think that this is what you like. And I spent a lot of my teenage years, and like I said, I'm intellectual. So I spent a lot of my time reading books on homosexuality, trying to figure out if that's what I was. It's not really more of a tip. It's more the idea of, I understand if any of the listeners have any confusion about who they are. My parents told me, I had 3 talks with my parents, 6, 12, and 18. All 3 talks were, if you are gay, we will love you.
Well, that's amazing, our listeners.
Yeah.
I can't
like I
imagine
said,
them getting that.
And like I said, in a black home, that's something that a lot of gays who were black that I used to hang out with, they didn't have that. Their parents kicked them out at 15, 16 years old. The moment that they even flashed a little bit of sugar in the bowl, so that they used to call it sugar in the bowl. Sugar in the bowl.
Well,
so the thing is,
call it sugar in the britches. You got sugar in your britches.
But they called it sugar in the bowl. So the thing is that I went through a long period where I had a tough time accepting who I was. And the older I got, the more that I realized, bitch, I don't give a fuck.
Right?
Wow.
Bitch, I don't give a fuck. I like dick. I like men. And that's just the way it is. And there's nothing I can do about it. And there's nothing I want to do about it. If I thought about it, I often thought, how would my life be different if I were straight?
Terrible.
If I were straight.
I don't know.
I can tell you like this, and it's very easy for me to tell. I'd be very miserable. I would be just an ordinary.
I'd probably be more of an adult.
I'd be so ordinary, it's ridiculous. And I never wanted to be ordinary. I never wanted to be ordinary. I never did.
Well, Oprah Winfrey.
Can you imagine?
It's time to go, girl. I know we're running over. I can feel it in my bones.
No, we're fine.
My bones say,
Oh, you have it right. We're 1 minute over.
See?
Big whoop.
Damn.
I got some bones, bitch.
We have gone over before.
Well,
We
Why
have
are you looking at me?
because you're leading the show.
I am?
Lead us out.
Shit. Well, I hope you had some good times listening to us. Joel and Chris's, Joel and Randy's, Texas Tea. Am I right?
Am I right? I am right. I am right. And I want to throw this out here.
Throw it out, baby.
Lord have mercy.
Throw it out.
Throw it
Lord
out.
have
Throw it
mercy.
out.
Girl, you just can't
They my penis. They my
close the
penis.
show.
I am getting
You just cannot let her
whispering.
close the show.
I am getting whispering shade
I
from
think
my right hand
Oh, it's
side.
not whispering. It's right in the microphone, girl. You can hear it. Let this bitch close the show. It's her show.
Dangling penises.
Oh, where are they at? Where?
Mm-hmm.
Don't say penises.
Mm-hmm.
God bless America. You know I hate that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
And anyway, all I wanted to say was, before I got interrupted by shade, was if you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything else, Joel and Randy's Texas Tea on Facebook, Joel and Randy's Texas Tea on Twitter, Joel and Randy's Texas Tea, Joel and Randy Show 1 on Instagram. Come talk to us, bitch. Talk to us.
Yeah, and if you're
Say
hot,
hello.
if you're hot and
We wanna
single,
hear.
do an
Lord knows.
actress.
Yes.
We want to hear from you.
We want to hear from you. We
I'm telling you, aliens are the only ones listening to the show.
Bitch, if
we
you
don't
wanna-
hear from anybody. I
Bitch,
want to hear.
if you want to throw shade about past episodes, by the way,
Throw shit about the fact that John
I
is
didn't
closing
miss
the
your
show.
intro.
It's on his show.
I miss your intro that you used to do.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna be trans. Anyway.
I did. You want to go out with that, with the intro we used
I'm
to
not
do?
going anywhere. Where am I
I
going?
used to love it.
You
I
wanna-
mean, that's why
Oh,
I
you want me
made
to
this
do
show.
it?
You want us to do it?
What is it?
All right, I'll do it.
Okay. Hey,
Are we ready to go? Joel and Randy's Texas Tea. Hey, you bitches and hoes, Joel and Randy's Texas Tea.
all tea, all shade, bitches Texas made,
Joel and Randy's Texas Tea.
with a little bit of Chris.
Oh, bitch, she is so he rather. I just say she for fun, but he doesn't like it when I say he.
No.
So
I'm a
and
dude.
he's got
I got a
she.
penis.
He's a dude. And he's got girl. I don't envy you a penis. I've got a cock.
Mhm.
I got a penis and a cock.
I
and a
got a
dick.
cock. I don't have a dick, girl. That's skinny.
Anyway, so we love you guys.
That equals 9 inches right there.
That wasn't the intro I was talking about, but anyway,
Mhm.
this is devolved.
Mhm.
What intro were you talking
What
about?
intro?
The one where y'all like, we apologize if we're going to be offensive, we're going to be transphobic, homophobic.
Oh, no,
Oh,
that
that
orange
intro.
girl.
I
That
would
was
agree with that intro. I would agree with that intro because guess
It was
what?
great.
Listen at your own risk.
But you know what? That's the reason why I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
Is that intro?
Really?
Yep.
Oh,
Because I heard it, I was like, y'all got something. Y'all got the X Factor.
Mhm.
That had the X Factor.
We do. Oh my gosh, I love that. But the
Anyway.
that intro precludes the show to this day, right?
No. We changed the intro to your music, to the
But
music.
what about the? Oh, we need that intro back.
Do we need
Although
The
I ain't
disclaimer.
heard.
The
Yeah,
disclaimer.
I didn't
Let's
like
put that at the end of the show. I'll put that at the end of the show.
We need to do that
I'll put that at the end of the
because
show.
we're on. We do. Listen,
Mm.
Chris, please take us out.
My name's Chris. I've been your host for tonight. I hope you all have a good week, and we'll see you next time.
Mm-hmm.
And Randy and Joel, or Joel and Randy.
And
whatever.
next week I'm hosting, so we'll see what happens.
It'll be better than this week.
I wouldn't.
We love
Wouldn't
y'all.
say that.
Peace out, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, bitches.
Oh, bitches.
I
Really?
said bitches.